Today, we dive into one of Asia's most volatile regions, the East China Sea, a body of water bordered by China, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. It's an area steeped in complex territorial claims, historical disputes, and a rapidly evolving security environment. But why are tensions escalating here? And could this be a new chapter in military posturing? First, let's start with some background. The East China Sea has long been a region of contention. Its strategic location and rich resources, especially around the Senkaku/Diaoyu Islands, have spurred decades of disputes primarily between Japan and China. In the past decade, we've seen everything from Coast Guard confrontations to international lawsuits as these nations grapple for control over the sea lanes and resources in the area. But what's different now? Let's break down the new elements that have transformed this dispute into a global concern. First up, China's military expansion. Over the last few years, China has been rapidly modernizing its navy, now boasting the world's largest fleet. Not just in quantity, but in quality. The PLA Navy has introduced advanced destroyers, aircraft carriers, and surveillance technology designed to extend its reach and, crucially, its influence over the East China Sea. And they aren't holding back. Recent naval exercises demonstrate China's increased readiness to assert control over contested waters. For China, this is not only a territorial claim, it's also about securing trade routes and ensuring access to critical energy resources, particularly as it seeks to lessen dependence on US-controlled trade paths. Japan's strategic shift. In response, Japan has begun recalibrating its own defense posture. Traditionally, Japan has maintained a purely defensive stance in line with its post-World War II pacifist constitution, but recently that has been shifting. Japan has made significant investments in its defense capabilities, including buying advanced fighter jets, missiles, and even contemplating long-range strike capabilities. Japan is also leaning heavily on its alliance with the United States, conducting joint exercises and strengthening military ties in an effort to counterbalance China's influence. For Japan, defending its interests in the East China Sea is not just about resources, but also about upholding sovereignty and ensuring security against growing regional threats. The role of the United States. And speaking of the United States, its role in the East China Sea remains crucial. The US has long been an ally to Japan and South Korea and has shown its commitment to the region's stability. But the US is also aware of China's ambitions and regularly conducts freedom of navigation operations to assert international maritime rights. Washington sees the East China Sea as an essential component of its Indo-Pacific strategy, emphasizing open sea lanes and opposing unilateral changes to the status quo. This presence not only reassures allies, but also signals to China that any escalation will likely bring the US directly into the fold. Taiwan, the wild card. Let's not forget the proximity of Taiwan, which sits just south of the East China Sea. China considers Taiwan a part of its territory and has increased military activity around the island. Should tensions flare up between China and Taiwan, the East China Sea would be a front line in any potential confrontation, with ripple effects for Japan, the United States, and beyond. Both Japan and the United States have reiterated their interest in a peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue, but with rising regional militarization, the situation could quickly escalate into a wider conflict. Resource competition and the economic stakes. Beyond military posturing, we can't ignore the economic factor. The East China Sea is home to significant oil and natural gas reserves, as well as rich fishing grounds. For China and Japan, securing these resources means energy independence and food security, both critical as they manage growing domestic demands. This competition over resources often overlaps with military maneuvers, heightening the stakes for each country. And with global attention on energy security, the situation in the East China Sea is becoming more relevant than ever for the international community. A path forward or continued tensions. So what lies ahead? Diplomatic channels remain open, and both Japan and China have at times attempted to negotiate resource-sharing agreements, though many have fallen apart due to mistrust and political pressure. The United States continues to encourage dialogue, But with each country doubling down on their security postures, finding common ground grows more difficult. Without mutual concessions, the military buildup may continue, with each nation preparing for a worst-case scenario. Whether this standoff leads to direct conflict or settles into an uneasy balance of power, the East China Sea will remain a critical flashpoint for years to come. Thank you for watching. The situation in the East China Sea is more complex and high stakes than ever, with implications that extend well beyond its shores. If you want to stay updated on this unfolding story and others around the world, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell. Let us know in the comments, do you think the East China Sea will see peace, or are we on the brink of something more serious?